So on December 31st, I received the best Christmas or New Year's gift possible. Myself and my business partner Dylan had done over 100K a month for the first time. I'll show you right here. Within the month of December 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023, their first 100.8K month. Diving back in, this was when only 60 days earlier we had intentionally plummeted one of our companies to start a marketing agency, and we did 13K in the month of October. Today, I've compiled the marketing, offer, appointment setting, and sales strategy that we honed in during this period. And warning, this video is going to be extremely boring. I spent years getting this information and then also 10 plus hours packaging everything in this video for free into a course, so it would be as if I was sitting on a Zoom meeting with you. So as always, I'll have the assets that I use linked in the description. But yeah, this is going to be a boring one. So we shut down our coaching business, Relentless Success Club, and only did 13K in the month of October to start a marketing agency in the mortgage space. So as you can see here, it's all publicly on YouTube how we did this. We scaled from 0 to 42K a month in 45 days, which was extremely strong because we had not actually run an agency ourselves for over a year at this point. So it was great to hop back in the arena and prove ourselves. As you can see here, we got a lot of social proof, appointments, all the clients signed, etc., and managed to do 41K, as you can see right there. This is what happened in the mortgage space. While this was happening, what our company had began to look like. So our original customer base, our inner circle, our loyals, honestly wouldn't buy any new products from us. We had no products to sell in the first place. We had shut down our Discord, which had meant no community at all for us. We had no team members. We were burnt out from the egregious amount of work we had just done in the mortgage space. And honestly, our business was like a glorified rusty frame of a car. I compare it to this. And once again, here is what the Discord somewhat looked like. And really, the only thing that kept us going at this point was how we wanted to design our business. So we wanted to not have to set the appointments ourselves, not take the sales calls ourselves, and has a team that actually does all the day-to-day functions for us, and also proven acquisition channels so we know we can make money long term. We pretty much wanted the ability to do absolutely nothing and still make money, so that when we want to work 10, 12 hours a day every single day, still we can work on the business and grow and explode it instead of just trying to maintain afloat. And that is what made us and pushed us to go through what we're going to be covering today, which once again is going to be offer, niche, golden numbers, the org chart that we designed, the appointment setting framework, the sales framework, and the service delivery structuring. So without further ado, let's dive into the offer and niche. So this is going to be broken up into a few categories right here. The first thing that we have is going to be our market. The second thing is going to be our ICP, stands for Ideal Customer Profile. And then the third thing that we're going to have at the very bottom is going to be the offer that we actually make to them. So the offer that we make to them. So these are the three trinities of getting pretty much product market fit. So PMF, it is a word from more so the software space, but is extremely relevant. Essentially what it means is just the product or the market really likes your product and you're going to be able to scale because it resonates with them. So the first thing that we have is market. I compare the world of business and a market to almost like in big little C over here. So for us, this equaled SMMA. In the SMMA space, we have absolute tyrants and guys like Iman who take up like half the market share. Then we have guys like Charlie Morgan. Then we have guys like Joel Kaplan, and I can go on for days and days about our competitors. But pretty much what happens is everyone has their stake. So let's say this is Iman Gadzhi. Let's say this was Joel Kaplan. Let's say this was Charlie Morgan. So these guys own the space in the market. They have people that have bought from them and they're huge. The market and how we want to actually work our offer and really get product market fit is by finding the weak points in each of the market shares that they hold. So as a result of growing big, and let me actually open another whiteboard for you here to show you this. As a result of going up in size, the complexity of your business has to drop somewhat, right? Everything has to get more streamlined and simple. So what we realized for us is it meant that almost all of our competitors were offering very leveraged forms of service delivery. They were doing group coaching. They were doing purely info product. And because of that, what we had learned is that as a business goes up in size, there's inevitably going to be weak points in their market share. So let's call this a weak point. And the way that we want to establish ourselves in any given market, and this can be whether it's SMMA, drop shipping, and bird catching, whatever you want to do, is by finding these weak points and exploiting them as what we do well. So for example, we noticed that a weak point that our customers had was they were tired of just getting info and group coaching. They were tired of it. They didn't want more info and they didn't want more group coaching. So we realized that, okay, well, we're the underdog in this situation, but the advantage that we have is that we have the time and can dedicate ourselves to work one-on-one with people. So this became our selling angle that allowed us to cut out a small market share for ourselves. And that would be us. And then from that point on, you can keep growing, expanding. And then eventually you hope to be one of these big guys who gets exploited and, has someone else get your startup because of you, but you're already making a shit ton of money, so you don't really care. The next thing that I want to explain. So once we've carved out our place in the market, which you'll simply do by looking at the size of your competitors and cutting out something that they cannot do as a result of their size, is going to be your ICP. So the ideal customer profile. This is a tricky one for a lot of people because when you think ideal customer profile, you've designed this person right here and they make a whole bunch of assumptions, right? They make assumptions about what this person does. They try and leave it up to guesswork what their ICP is. And it honestly just doesn't make sense. The ICP is supposed to be an intangible, so it doesn't directly work and make money for you, but it's supposed to be a guiding light and a tool so that your marketing has someone that you're actually speaking to and a customer that you're trying to attract. And the issue when you assume is that a lot of the time you're wrong. The way that you nail your ICP, which is the third stage or second stage of finding your product market fit, is by speaking to a younger version of you. You want to speak to a younger version of you yourself. So what I mean by that is, as I spoke about in my last video, inherently the only way that you're going to be able to provide coaching is if you have a position yourself right here that you have, let's say, a good amount of smaller people like this times multiple thousand that would like to swap places with you. Now, maybe they don't want to sleep in the bed that you're sleeping in now or eat the food that you eat right now, but fundamentally they want to swap positions with you in whatever realm of business or service or skill that you have. For us, this was SMMA. So when it comes to finding the ideal prospect that we actually want and finding out how we can attract this person that wants to swap places from us, the answer is that it's always going to be a younger version of ourselves. We do not need to assume and guess that this person went to this college or is this years old and has this level of marital status. It is literally just where we came from ourselves. So for us, I know that I was an aspiring marketing agency owner and I would look up to this person and all these guys online, such as Iman, Joel, and all the competitors that I just named. That was who I looked up to. So I knew that when I started and became an SMMA coaching business owner myself, the goal that I needed to actually double down on was just speaking to who this person is. For us, it was a guy in their 20s who was either in college or wanted to drop out. So I'll just write drop out. So they'd already dropped out already, or they wanted to drop out really badly, but for some reason they just couldn't. And the service that we were offering to them was getting their first few clients and getting their agency to that initial mark where they can say, screw you, right? 10K a month wasn't quite it because they could get that if they went through college and got the right job, et cetera, et cetera. But 25K a month was the level where no matter what job and what school they had went to, unless they spent years and years and years and got masters and PhDs, they would never make that much money. So if they made it from the marketing agency, they would be able to say screw you to anyone that ever doubted them. So we knew that number was 25K a month because it was the dream that both myself and Dylan had. And as a result of marketing like that, we got the results that we saw today. So when it comes to the actual ICP and how it forms, we have two parts. The first part is going to be called demographic. The demographic is essentially what you are. So you are 20 years old, you are white, black, Asian, Indian, or it's Asian. You are this level of educational status, you are this tall, etc., etc. Things on paper that describe what you are. The second one is going to be the psychographic. This one is a little bit different because it describes who you are. So this could be things such as fears. This could be things such as hobbies, dreams, pretty much what goes on inside of your own head. The psychographic is a lot more important than the demographic. But what you want to do in order to nail this section of ICP and really make it worth your while and really make it something that's valuable is you're going to want to make a fake person right here. You're going to want to give them a name. Now, you can make it your name and then Junior. That, I don't know, it's kind of weird to talk to. I've always liked the names either Fred or Drake, not the artist Drake, like the first name Drake. So I'd be speaking to either Fred or Drake, and I would write down everything about them. I'd write down their demographic stuff. So I'd write down their age, gender, education, etc., etc., etc. Then I'd write down the psychographic, and this is where I'd really go in depth. I'd write down their fears. I'd write down what they were scared of growing up. I'd write down what their dreams are. And I would, even if it wasn't going to be 100% accurate for each person, I'd write down and get extremely specific about what this person wants out of life, and then imagine I was speaking to them. And as a result of doing that, we would get so in depth and so much buy-in from people, because the first thing that they'd say when they hop on the call is, it felt like you were talking to me. And that is how we nail the ICP. The final part, putting it all together, is the offer. So as I was explaining before, both the market and the ICP are intangible. Those two alone are never going to make you any money. They are contributing assets to the big whammy, which is going to be your offer, which is something that if you actually do right, you can take to market and people will pay you a lot of money for. So, explaining how the offer actually works. We want to go and we need to find, first things first is pain of the RICP. So we want to get the pain of our ICP. Then, once we've got the pain of our ICP, we want to add that up with the market share that we found ourselves from the very first phase. And then we need that to equal out to a dream of ICP. And that is how we create an offer in the most simple terms that not only is good. You can make a good offer in many different ways. You can read this book right here and you can learn how to value stack. You can get the pricing down. You can get all this stuff down just by reading $100 million offers. It's amazing. But what $100 million offers doesn't go as in depth on, which is extremely important, is this little silent killer that is named resonation. So is your offer actually going to be something that people care about, right? Your offer can be amazing, but are they going to care about it? Is it going to be something that when they hear, it's like, oh my gosh, that solves my problems? And the way that we do that is by, first off, taking the pain of our ICP. Give you an example. For us, it was the group coaching and the info product. They were just sick and tired of it. The market share that we had was that we work with people one-on-one directly. And then the dream of the ICP was a $25K a month marketing agency. So we knew that if we could achieve a $25K a month marketing agency working one-on-one with people, this pain would be alleviated, which would allow us to create buyers. And when we actually wrapped this up and bubble wrapped it, everything, we had this nice guarantee, we had a timeline, we had the features that we delivered, et cetera, et cetera. But at its base level, the stuff that you won't find in other books and other places of the internet is going to be explaining how to actually just take this pain of the ICP, combine it with the market share. So that's what I want you to do right now. then you can pause this video, put that offer together, and then go through a book like this to spice it up and make it look a little bit better. So that was the first section on how to put together the offer and the niche. The next thing we're going to be diving into is going to be the golden numbers. So in this next phase, I'm going to be breaking down what I call the golden numbers. And if you can achieve the golden numbers, and I guess the other word that people call them is KPIs, you can achieve these, oh my word, you're guaranteed to be rich. The issue is that they're not easy to achieve. So here is what they're going to be. The first thing that we have to cover is the different aspects of our company. So we've got marketing, appointment setting, sales, and service delivery. So if we go through to each of these, I just want to break down how our funnel usually going to work. So we've got right here, this is going to be our marketing. I'm just going to put an M here. Our marketing is going to go to our setting. Our setting is going to go to our sales. Our sales is going to go to our delivery, which is going to be the product that we actually have. So at each of these points, there are going to be drop-offs and almost like bandits in the road that are going to try and break this flow of customers coming through. What we need to do is we need to understand how much we can stop from getting through while still being successful. So for example, if you expect yourself to set 100% of the appointments and if you expect yourself to set 100% of the leads that come through, you're going to have an unrealistic assumption that if you push on your team, just isn't going to work because you have unrealistic expectations and you don't understand what's going to be happening yourself. Next thing, sales. If you expect to close at 30, 40%, not yourself, that's reasonable, but with team members and sales reps and have them be just as good as you hold that unrealistic expectation and it's only going to bite you in the ass because you can't understand the strategy that you actually need to have. So I'm going to look away from pessimism and look away from treating every fight like your last and just show you how much you actually have the potential to suck if you still want to make a crap ton of money. So the first thing is going to be marketing. The number that we have to actually tackle right here is going to be our opt-in percentage. So the amount of people that opt in, that visit our website. On the setting front, this is going to be our first off lead to set. And then on the sales, it's going to be first thing is going to be our show up, and then our close, and then our delivery. It is going to be our case study conversion. So how much can you suck at each of these things while still being successful? The most you can suck at running a landing page and optimizing it is probably at the absolute lowest you could ever go is going to be around 10%. If you go anything lower than 10% and you're not driving copious amounts of traffic to a warm audience, to a cold, it's a little bit different, you are completely screwed. You need to keep it at around 10% of people that visit your website are opting in at warm traffic. At cold, it is going to be 5% at the absolute minimum. If it goes below either of these numbers for hot or cold traffic, you're doing something extremely wrong and you need to delete everything on your website right now and change it because it's just not working the way it needs to. The next thing is going to be the actual high number that we want to aim for. For warm traffic, the number that we should be aiming for, honestly, could be anywhere from 20 to 25%, but we'll say 20% is solid. 20% is an option percentage that if you can maintain at scale, you're going to make a lot of money. So the middle marker that you have to play between the 10 and 20 here is honestly where you're going to be sitting most of the time. Again, hopefully you're a lot higher up on the other front because if you're only getting 10% of warm traffic that opts in, you're going to need a lot of viewers. On cold traffic, again, pretty similar. I would honestly say this one is 10 to 15% of cold traffic that you have opt-in. Again, same deal. The reason why is if you're paying for each and every single eyeball and only 1 out of the 10 people that see it opt in, you're going to be extremely inefficient, right? at scale, or sorry, if only 5% of people opt in, extremely inefficient at scale. With 10%, at least is something that you can work towards and still have good conversions, especially if you're charging, and let's assume right here, we're going to always assume we have a minimum $4,500 product, because if you're charging anything less and you have a individual delivery mechanism to a really strong result, you either just launched your service, so it hasn't matured enough to where you have results to justify that pricing, or you have a scarcity mindset and you're undercharging. So that is the opt-in percentage that we need to optimize for. The simple way of doing this is by keeping, a extremely bare bones website. So to show you honestly what the structure of your websites look like, and I'm going to do it on a whiteboard because it's this simple. So you need to have your headline like this. This is going to be your headline. And then maybe your headline's 2 lines. And then you're going to have a little sub headline under it like this. So there's going to be your headline, then you're going to be sub headline. Then you're going to have something along the lines of, and you can put this on the left or right side, or you can put a video here, who knows. You're going to have some form of media right here. And then this media is going to have a value proposition that you briefly explain below it. And then you're going to have a little bit more copy right here. And then there is going to be a big button that says not opt-in, but communicates that they need to opt in. And I kid you not, this should be on a white page that looks exactly like this. You can click on the website. I have it in the description. It's performed and set up exactly like this. You can't scroll on it. You read the headline, you read the sub headline, you read the copy, you look at the media, and you decide if you want to opt in or not. That is how simple your website should be. And pretty much what you should be optimizing for is purely the copywriting alone. The copywriting is the most important part to actually get the conversions. It is how good this initial headline is that determines whether people pay you, not the graphics on the website, not anything else. So when you keep it simple like that, you continue optimizing it and getting to a point where you can get these opt-in percentages just by having extremely solid copy on this front. Next thing is going to be appointment setting. So this is actually where I ran my first marketing agency, in the appointment setting space, and getting the KPI that we actually have here is going to be 7% lead to set rate is going to be good. I don't even think you should go any lower than this. 7% lead to set rate is the number that you should be aiming for. It should be the standard for your team. If you allow anything less than that, because you have a team that's working on it and it's not just you, it's not going to end well because you're just enforcing very low standards. So how do we do setting the right way? So I'm going to tell you right now, I will give you a framework and a script on what you should actually say on the call, but that really doesn't matter. The factors that we have are script, we've got time, then we've got volume. So of the 3 and which matters the most, I would say likely it goes 1, 2, 3. And if I had to rank it out of 10, this one is a 10 out of 10 importance. This one is a 9 out of 10 importance. And this one is a 6 out of 10 importance. So to explain how each of these work, I will start with the script because it's probably what your monkey brain wants to see in the framework that you want to have. So the framework for doing a proper setting script, first off, is going to be making your setter the authority. So instead of trying to set the appointment, you are going to be qualifying them to speak with you. So let me repeat that. Instead of your appointment setter hopping on the phone and trying to set the appointment, your appointment setter should be someone who is interviewing them to see if they are qualified to move to the next stage of the funnel. So as you saw here, when this person opts in, they should be getting a call within 5 minutes, which is the time part I'll speak about. And when they call, the frame should be, hey, the reason I called is because we're actually looking for da-da-da, and I wanted to call you to see if you were qualified for XYZ. Authority frame is the first and most important part here. You want to set an authority frame with the person. Once you've set the authority frame with the person, the honest game from that point on is just focusing purely on them. So almost like an anti-script, if that makes sense. you shouldn't have an offer or like a written out, hey, here's what we do, X, Y, Z. What I've taught every single setter team that I've ever run to do is first off have a bank of stories, and then from that point on, pretty much turn them into mini sales reps, which as I get into the management and the operations side of the team, also benefits because you're going to be training your future closers in your appointment setters, and they're going to be absolutely dialed because they're going to know your offer extremely well. So what I mean by that is I would hop on the phone with someone, and let me make myself bigger because it's going to be a pretty big segment. So I would hop on the phone with someone, and the first thing I'd say is, hey, I'm qualifying you to see if you'd be fit for the XYZ offer. Am I interrupting you? Is now a bad time? Okay, great. So then from that point on, it would just be purely qualifying them. Yeah, so I guess tell me about the kind of agency you run. Okay, so you're running this acquisition channel. You're doing this right now. It's working this well. Okay. And then I would break and go to the point which I'm going to go into right now, which is going to be problem identification. So the way that I'd identify their problem is pretty much by just asking them with what is called a damaging admission. So go ahead and say to them, okay, well, I'm going to be completely honest. It kind of sounds like you're struggling with XYZ problem, or I guess, what do you think is stopping you from hitting that goal that you said you wanted to hit right here? Then they'd unload. Okay, I think this is stopping me from hitting my goal. I think it's my sales process. I think it's my setting. I think it's my service delivery. I think I'm not charging enough. Whatever they say, you need to have a bank of stories that your appointment setter or you use to then bridge the gap of how you solved it. So you're not giving them an evergreen pitch. You're not saying to them, here's how my program works and we do this and that and this and that. I'm looking forward to speaking with you. It is literally, hey, you said you had a problem with your sales. In my own company, I solved that problem by making X, Y, Z, and Z changes, and it did this. And here's kind of how it happened. Here's how I felt around it. You can take a few minutes to explain that. Do you think that solution would, I guess, work with the situation that you have going on right now? They say no. You loop back around. Okay, well, why do you think that? And then you just loop back around and speak with them until you can get them to say yes to that question. Yes, I think it could solve the problem that I have. Then what you say is, all right, well, I guess to be honest, I'm probably going to need to prepare, and I'd like to hop on a call so we can properly dive into showing you how I solve this problem with my own business by doing X, Y, Z, yada, 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 explaining whatever you said to them. When would be a good time? And then you transition to the appointment set, boom. To summarize this section, my main point is pretty much that you just should not have an appointment setting script. You should be training your setters as if they were salespeople and treating these calls as if they were interviews. You are learning about the person that you have got onto the other end of the phone with, what their problems are, what they're struggling with, and then you're simply relaying that to a bank of stories about how you solve that problem yourself. And if it's your setter speaking, you're going to go to them and you're going to teach your setter, hey, I solved all these problems all these ways. So they can say on the phone, yeah, so here's how Alex solved this, or here is my business partner, here's how Dylan solved this. And that was how we booked every single appointment we had. And as soon as we threw the appointment setting script out of the door and just started talking to the people themselves, almost every person who picked up the phone who was qualified ended up booking through. And even the people that were unqualified still booked through, and we had the opportunity to disqualify them, which goes to the next thing here, which is actually just how many people get on the phone with you. These two are the more important part, because oftentimes the big issue that people have is that they're literally just not getting onto the phone with people. First thing is going to be time. I cannot stress this enough. Your appointment setters need to be calling new leads that come in within under 5 minutes. If they're not, they should not be on your team for a long period of time, because they're going to be losing you money. Every single lead that comes in costs you money, whether it was through organic and it was your time that you spent, or whether it's through ads and you physically paid for the attention. You need to call them within 5 minutes to get them on the phone, because if you're relying on the landing page to convert people alone, it's not going to work. And if you're calling them late, they're going to forget about your offer. Within 5 minutes is the only KPI that if you're doing will consistently get you answers. In addition to calling them within 5 minutes, there's going to be simple things right here, like you're going to be double dialing them at the minimum. If you're not double dialing, what are you doing? Next thing is going to be, in addition to that, making sure you update your pipeline so that you can optimize for volume. So what I mean by that is, if you are able to call, and actually here's our number, we call every new lead that enters our pipeline 8 times within the first 48 hours. So the first time that you opt in to my other company's coaching business for marketing agencies, you opt into our pipeline, you're going to get 8 phone calls. 8 phone calls. I know because I was doing some funnel hacking and I've been getting phone calls all day. 8 phone calls and given opportunities to get into conversation. This works extremely well because eventually someone's going to pick up the phone and be kind of pissed off. Maybe if it's on the 7th or 8th time. Hey, what do you want? Hey, I totally apologize. I didn't mean to bother you. And then explain your offer. And when it is about them and when you're talking about them and how to help them and solve their problems, as long as you can convey that in a genuine fashion, you're not going to get people who scream at you upset on the phone. And sometimes, even if you do, it is better than them not picking up in the first place because at least you got the opportunity to convert them. So now I want to add the final part in addition to all these things, which is going to optimize your pickup rate, which in a second I'll dive into the numbers and what that means, is going to be your marketing. So on your landing page, as I was explaining before, once they've actually opted in, you need to now explain to the prospect that they're going to be getting a phone call. If you do not explain that they're going to be getting a phone call, they're not going to make the connection that their phone ringing within 5 minutes of them opting into that page and your service, your offering, and everything that we spoke about with the market is going to actually be interconnected. And if those aren't interconnected, you're not going to get the pickups at the rate that we want to get them at. So what I would suggest doing is after your opt-in page, you want to create your next page, which has some form of value proposition based on whatever your offer is. And you're going to be prefacing it with maybe a subheading, with maybe even a bold heading below that says, hey, we're going to be personally calling you in order, and we're not going to say qualify in this situation, that's what we do on the phone, in order to deliver you X result, or in order to provide you this custom consultation. You want to make it something valuable and pre-frame it in your marketing so that we can optimize for the metric, which I'm about to show you, which is my good old friend named pick up rate. So of people that come in, what percentage of them pick up? So the number that we are aiming for is 25%. 25% of people pick up, we are going to be in a good place. And this is off the initial. After follow-up, the number that we should be aiming for is a 40% pickup rate, right? We want 40% of people to pick up after we do all the follow-up, the 8 calls, moving through the pipeline, et cetera, whatnot. In order for the 25% pickup rate to lead to the goal that we have, the next thing that we're going to be diving into is going to actually be what I like to call the pitch rate. So how many of them are qualified for us to pitch our offer to, and how many of them are going to turn into appointments for us. So the pitch to appointment, holy, my writing is so bad, I apologize. Pitch to appointment ratio. So 25% of people we pick up, we need to be pitching about 50% of those people. And then of 50% of the people we pitch, we should be aiming for a 30% to appointment. So this number boils down to, I believe, just over that 7% KPI we had and meandering somewhere between the 15 to 10% if we just clash all these numbers together and see what they look like. When we combine that with the 40% pickup rate over time, it becomes virtually impossible for us to not get that 7% lead to set rate after the follow-up if we can manage to nail the pitch rate and the pitch to appointment rate. The pitch rate is something that comes down to 2 factors, right? In the pitch rate, we have got the opener of the setter, which is pretty much just how charismatic they are when the call opens and if the person wants to talk to you. And then the more important one, which is going to be the actual quality of the leads, right? If the leads are just not quality, it's going to be very difficult to pitch all of them. If it's a middle-aged woman who has no clue what your product is, or it's a guy, a plus 91 number, that's India, and a lot of the time they'll pick up the phone and not really know what's going on or not pick up the phone at all. Those are not going to be people that you can pitch. So you want to get this number intact by having good marketing and then also having some friction set up on your funnel so that you can only have people that are qualified come through. And then from that, once you pitch them, you need 30% of the people that you end up pitching to go and convert to an appointment for you. So roughly 1 out of every 3 people you talk to. And that should be relatively simple. This is where all of the setter team's training actually boils down to, right? So what I mean and why I even ranked before the actual script, skill level of the setter as the third most important thing, and the time and volume is so much more important, is because this is the time thing. This is going to be the volume thing and / the marketing thing. And this is going to be the volume thing completely. And if none of these three things are working, then you're never even going to get in conversation with people enough for the training to matter. So a big part of the setter's training should be explaining to them how to use the system and the importance of the system, because if they don't have these things dialed, it's not going to make them any money at all. And once you're in the training with them, it's extremely simple, right? You just need to be sitting down. You need to be reviewing calls every single day. I honestly like to keep my setter teams on the same wavelength as the sales team, so they have merged sales team meetings together. But with the setters alone, we should be meeting with them 2x daily, right? One in the morning, one in the evening. And then we should have one training call and then one general sales team call. So we can have one meeting in the morning for both the setters and the sales reps, but in the evening, we have two separate meetings, one for the setters training, one for the sales team training. And if we're doing that every single day, repping this to get this number to the 30% pitch to a point where we're good to go, we just need to have so much emphasis and so much dedication on making sure these three things happen, because if they don't, it doesn't matter how good the appointment setters are. And I say this as someone who's probably number one skill in the agency space was purely appointment setting. So that is going to be the appointment setting phase. If we can get all these numbers dialed in, we can get to that 7% plus lead to set rate. The next thing I dive into is going to be sales. All right, so I'm about to show you is the silent killer of most sales processes, and that is going to be show up rate. So everyone talks about show up rate at 75%. Oh, it's so easy, et cetera, et cetera. If you do not manage your show up rate and you are running advertising, right? So it's not only warm traffic that you're converting. If you do not have things dialed in, you're going to be sitting at a show up rate of around 51+%. I'd hope that more than half the people to the call show up. Now, the difference between a 51% show up rate and if we go all the way to the far side, which would be a 100% show up rate, is a difference between a 2x in revenue. It's a big deal. If you're doing 100K a month, it's 200K a month. If you're doing $1 million a month, that's $2 million a month. So it can be extremely, extremely big. And this is idealistic and will not happen. But to the extent that we will get closer to achieving this is to the extent that we get closer to achieving 2 times our revenue, which ain't so bad for one little metric that we don't really need to train or maneuver any people around for. So in order to optimize the show up rate, here are the numbers and the factors that we have. We got automations, then we got marketing, and then the most important, which is going to be people. So automations is what everyone thinks when they need show up rate. They're like, oh my word, what does my SMS need to say? What does XYZ need to say? What emails do I send? How many times am I confirming the call? This, again, to show you the order of importance, goes 1, 2, 3. With our automations, what we had done is we optimized the entirety of our automations just to get into conversation with people. So what I meant by that is we positioned all of our texts, all of our emails that we send to prospects literally as just, hey, it's so-and-so. And yes, it was an automation, but we intentionally made it non-robotic and human-like because all we wanted to do was open up the opportunity for us to speak with them directly. Because what we learned, and this is the big domino for show up rate, is if they interact, they show, right? And it makes a lot of sense. If they're dedicating time towards responding to us, towards picking up our calls and whatnot, it by extension shows that they're interested in our service and what we have to offer. So as a result, they're going to show up to the call. How we actually go about executing this is where it becomes extremely complicated for a lot of people, because their way of getting them to interact is to almost give like consequence automations. Hey, we disqualify people if they don't respond, what's going on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And really, the most important thing that you can do is literally just pre-frame. Pre-frame means to, before something happens, explain that it is going to happen. It can also be to foreshadow, to insinuate, whatever you'd like to say. That starts all the way at our landing page. So if you have a thank you for booking video, if you have a VSL after the initial opt-in page, first thing is you always need to be talking about them needing to pick up the phone, them picking up. So the way that we did this in our VSL is we literally had a line in our VSL that says, hey, we're looking for people to become serious partners of our company. What that means is that a very big qualifier and a very big tell for us, if that's going to be you, is how quickly you get back to us when we text you, if you pick up our calls or not. And honestly, if someone isn't picking up our calls, chances are we're really not going to want to work with them, because what's going to happen when we actually are working together and we are partnered together if you won't even pick up when we're trying to meet each other, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be the first thing. You want to talk about them picking up, and you want to integrate this to all sections of your landing page. The next thing is, if you actually manage to set them on the phone, you can use a line called the litmus test. The litmus test is pretty much giving them a way to get out. And if they don't get out, it means they really want to stay, which increases their chances to show heavily, and also pre-frame that they might get another call right here. So once again, we're going to assume that we have that 25% pickup rate that we dived into in the settings section. So when we're on the phone with them, what we say to them is, hey, I know some people, they're really dazzled by the numbers and think, oh my gosh, if I could achieve, and I'll use the example that we had for our company, a 25K a month marketing agency, I'd be over the moon. I'd be so happy. Everything would be amazing. And really, at the end of the day, they're not serious about actually going to the trenches, going to fight to make it happen. So it doesn't end up becoming a good use of both of our time to hop on the call. I know based on this conversation, it doesn't seem like you're that kind of person, but I do just want to make sure that this is something you're actually interested in, right? And then you pause and you let it go for maybe 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and wait for them to speak. If they say no, I actually wasn't interested. Again, it was just like numbers. I just wanted to make a bit more money, et cetera, then you disqualify them, let them get off the call. You can try and reset them if you'd like. I recommend doing that, but worst case scenario, let them off the call. The alternative, or the other option, which is going to happen majority of the time, I would say 75% plus of the time, if you're conducting the setting call properly and actually getting to the point where they've already booked in the call, and then you're saying this, they're going to say like, no, I'm serious about this. And from that point on, they've just tipped the teeter-totter of power, if we go like this, completely in our favor, right? We have all the power. We have all the leverage. This is them. And then this is us. So what we want to do with that is we want to begin pre-framing once again to what is going to happen. Say, okay, you're serious about this. Amazing. Well, I want to let you know that we're going to be reaching out to you via text. We're going to be reaching out to you via email. And, I might even be giving you a handoff to one of our advisors who's actually going to be speaking directly with you, et cetera, et cetera. A big telltale, and then you're going to repeat this line here that you say on the landing page. A big telltale about whether a partner is good for us is, I guess, how good they're at communicating during this opening phase. So it would be really appreciated and honestly huge for us to see if we actually want to work with you, depending on how well you respond. And, even on our end, qualify us, see how good our communication is, because it's going to be how we speak and work together to achieve this result, et cetera, et cetera. Is that good with you? Amazing. And then here is where the sauce comes into play. This is something that you don't see a lot of people do often. You want to go to their ground. WhatsApp, great place. And you want to go to WhatsApp Business. And when you're in WhatsApp Business, what you're going to do is the appointment setter is then going to take the prospect, they're going to take the closer, and they're going to take the setter, and they're going to combine the three of you into a group chat. And this is on the setting call. right after they've already agreed to a time, after they've already agreed to an appointment, you're going to make a WhatsApp group chat using the number that they have there. And then from that point on, you have the introduction, et cetera, et cetera. You ask them to make an introduction of themselves, introduce themselves to the closer. The closer responds with a video message. And then from that point on, it's like you're already beginning the sales process via text and via WhatsApp. So it becomes extremely easy for them to show up to the call. And pretty much, again, my rule, if they interact, they show. Once you've got them in that WhatsApp and they're sending a message to the closer and the closer's asking them initial questions and starting to kind of scope out what is going to actually transpire on the call, they're shown. If they're a bit standoffish, call it out immediately. What I mean by that is if they aren't responding in the group chat, if they really just like don't seem too enthusiastic about getting to meet the person that's going to deliver them all these results that you've kind of spoken about, you can say, hey, you seem a bit standoffish about this. Is this something that I guess like you're actually like interested in doing, or I guess what's the cause of that? And then they'll tell you the reason. You can work together to solve it, et cetera, et cetera. But the premise is that if you can get them in this group chat on WhatsApp, and it's very important that it's on WhatsApp because it's a local channel to most people. Everyone has WhatsApp, talk with distant family or from the US or Canada. And then I know it's a primary form of communication in places of Europe and around the world. Once you've got them there and they're interacting, boom, you're set. And really, that is how you nail the show up rate. Extremely simple. Just again, getting them to interact. 5% or as close as we can get to 100 show up rate. The next thing involved in sales is going to be a 20% close rate. So from that 20% close rate, we're going to actually break it down, and we're going to want a 50% offer rate. Then we're going to need a 50% offer to close. And then in addition to that, this is a little third metric that we have. We also want a 50% CVC, which stands for contract value collected. And that is just the amount of money that we make from them on call, collecting 50% of whatever the full payment term that they're going to actually have is. So sales by itself is an entire course on how to get your sales team dialed. So I'm going to keep it very high level in the information that I provide. However, I'm going to break down the actual numbers and how much you can suck. So some people say, yeah, you need to close at 33%. Maybe it's absolute beast on the phone, et cetera, et cetera. 20% is realistic to what a sales team is going to be able to consistently convert. Not over one hot month when you're running a good offer, but I mean over 6, 12 months or however long you want to run the team and actually be able to step away and be a business owner. Because a lot of the time you see someone have one good sales month and they just go run around and like hold it on YouTube. It's like, oh, the standard's 33%. No, it's not. It's closer to 20. So in order to achieve a 20% close rate, the things that actually matter, the 20% close rate, we can cross that out because it is not what makes 20% close rate. If we just expect every 5 calls that we hop on, one of them to close, we're just navigating in the dark because we don't know what bucket each of those 5 prospects falls under. And sometimes if we look at sales as this very big game of like, there's these calls. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And let's just imagine that each of these is multiplied by 10. So we might be supposed to close 1 of every 5 calls at a 20% close rate, but we might go like 98 calls and then close like 20 people in a row. And that is what honestly kills a lot of sales teams' morales. They have these hot streaks and these down streaks, but because they hold themselves to the number of like, hey, here's my overall close rate and determine their entire self-worth and revenue because of that, it becomes very, very difficult to understand the statistical game if you're not dropping people into smaller buckets, which is where the offer rate, the offer close rate, and the contract value collected comes into play. So what I mean by that is the offer rate. The most important thing in your entire sales process is literally before the salesperson's skill. So let me do this again. We got skill, then we got lead, and then we got price. So we're going to assume price is crossed out because we already talked about that. We have minimum 4.5K product. Lead is more important than skill. And I don't mean that as in what your closer should think. You should not say this to them. If you say to your closers that leads are more important than skills, they're going to be sitting there every day bitching to you as soon as someone doesn't give themselves on a silver platter for them to be closed. But in your mind, in your hardest of hearts as the business owner, you should know that the lead that you give them is a lot more important than their skill when it comes to having an evergreen across the board dialed sales process. But you don't tell them this. This is a secret. So what I mean by that is if you are offering 50% of the people that hop onto a call, and this can only happen if there are good leads, right? The lead is the primary contributing factor to what leads us to make an offer. This becomes such a simple game to work with. Let's say we have 100 calls and now we know that we're offering 50 of them. So we have now 50 calls that we go down to. It becomes a lot easier to hold salespeople accountable to actually being good at what they do when we know how many offers they're actually working off of, right? If a salesperson takes 100 calls and closes 10 of them, you're going to be like, okay, well, that's a 10% close rate. But if a salesperson takes 100 calls, offers 10 people and closes 10 of them, you're going to be like, oh, this sales guy is actually not that bad. There might be something going on with the lead here, which is why if you can get 50% of the people offered, you can always hold your salespeople accountable to being better. And it also holds them accountable to being better because they know when a lead's good, that they have the onus to close them and they can't just chalk it up to this big, grandiose, and kind of airy-fairy number, which is overall close rate. So here we go to the next part, which is going to be the offer to close rate. So 50% of the people that we actually make an offer should be closing, right? That should be the fundamental rule that we have. If you're running a more large scale sales organization, you're pumping ads and whatnot, this can wane down to about 33%. But fundamentally, the absolute lowest is that out of 3 people you make an offer, 1 of them is going to end up paying you. If you've got this dialed in, it becomes now extremely easy to keep your sales team accountable because if you can keep that offer rate at 50%, you can now say, okay, well, how many offers you make today? Not how many calls you took today, how many offers you make today? Oh, I made 3 offers today. Okay, well, I guess like what stopped from getting closed? The next day, okay, well, I made another 7 offers. Okay, well, now you've made 10 offers, so you should have 3 closes. And now you actually have accountability within your sales organization because you're not going to have people play hissy sulky because of the lead quality. So that's why the actual offer rate is so important. And then the third metric that we're going to break that down to is going to be contract value collected. So this applies more when it comes to the service delivery front, keeping your business cash flowing and more operational stuff. But you need to be collecting at least 33% at the absolute minimum. If you collect any lower than that, you're honestly just like running what I consider unethical business. And you should be honestly a lot closer to 50. That's where we sit of the upfront value of the contract. So I mean with that, if you're charging 10K and you're onboarding someone for $1,000 and it's not like they're going to pay within like the next few days or like they just have to wait in a week to get a payment come through to pay you the rest. If you're onboarding someone formally with no further intention to pay you for $1,000 and you have a $10,000 product, that's unfair to everyone else who paid you a way ton more amount of money. And it creates so many reputational issues on the front end, but also with your internal team conflict, sales team morale. Just please don't do it. Run your business the right way. So you want to be collecting at least 33 to 50% of that upfront. And what that does is allows your business to actually cash flow itself so they can reinvest back into ads, back into your team, and properly scale. That is the extent of the sales that I want to cover in this video. There's a lot more to get through. If you want a separate video on the actual sales script and how we segue from that authority frame in the sales process or in the setting process into the sales process, where honestly, we would take a OKR demonstration just like this one and sell literally just by screen sharing through this and asking them questions. I can make a video on exactly how we did that because it was an extremely effective sales strategy that worked super well. So I can make another video on that. Let me know. But with that being said, that is sales. Probably the biggest universal problem with coaching businesses that you'll never hear them talk about is longevity. So how long can you actually keep this all up for? And I want you to picture the actual timeline of your life that you want to have in business. So we got, let's say you want to be in business for another 50 years or another 40 years, 20 years, whatever you decide. It doesn't need to be that long. However, in this timeline, how long is this business that you're running right now actually going to last you? Are the tactics that you're using, the strategies that you're implementing, the systems, and the people that you have in your business, people that are going to be able to stay around for something like this or something like this, or in most cases, how honestly, usually a very, very small sliver. And you want to be optimizing for longevity. And the way that you do that is by having an extremely good team and operations. Because if you get that dialed, you can be paying people extremely well that will work with you for a very long time and allow you to run the business without being directly involved in the day-to-day, which is the goal that myself and Dylan achieve with our company. We still decided to work absolutely every day, all day, because it's what we enjoy doing. However, we did not have to. So the org chart that you want, we got our departments here. Let's say we got marketing, we got setting, and then we got sales, then we got delivery, and then we got overall, we got like finance. I mean, I don't want to contract and put all these people into a box, because depending on what kind of company you run, this could be really, really different. So I'll deal with these people after. We got marketing, setting, sales, and delivery. So marketing, I fundamentally believe that your marketing team should probably be the leanest team in your company. It should be maybe one person, two people, right? One of them is going to be an editor, right? Like a video person. So someone who helps you put together your videos, a creative director. And then the other person is going to be a media buyer. So this is someone to run your advertising, the actual day-to-day tweaking of it, not strategy. The head of the marketing division should be you. And I know I said remove from the day-to-day. Marketing is not day-to-day, because marketing is one of the biggest contributors to growing the company. And from a leverage perspective, it can take maybe 1 to 2 hours a day to come up with an angle, record a video, et cetera, et cetera. And honestly, it's like what brings all the revenue. So this marketing team is extremely important. It should be the leanest team in your company. However, because you are going to be pulling a lot of the weight, especially if it's built off your personal brand. If it's not built off your personal brand and you're doing the ads alone, then you can go media buyer, and then maybe you can wane a little bit more by paying this person better. Setting. The way that you want to run your setting team is probably going to be the people in the department with the most people in it. So your setting team, if you want to be running a 100K a month coaching business, we honestly had 2 setters when we managed to pull it off ourselves. But when it came to maintaining it, we realized that we need to have closer to 5 setters. And what I mean by that is you need only 3 full-time setters, right? Like 3 setters on the go doing 8 hours a day by the phone would get you the same result, but people have lives. And honestly, with the appointment setting, as I was talking about at the time, there's such a big room for error that transparently, it is so much better to have these extra 2 people to kind of play cleanup for whenever these 3 are not performing. So this is the setting team. You want to have roughly 5 people on it to achieve 100K a month. Sales team. This is where I see a lot of mistakes made. The sales team only needs to have 2 closers on it. If you bring on more closers than that, you're just going to be creating too much competition for the calendar. And there's something called the time scale equation. So, and this applies to you as the business owner as well. In any given thing, there's the amount of time that we spend doing it, which is the T, and then we got the skill that we have at doing it, which is the S. What the relationship between these 2 things are is directly correlative. So the amount of time we put into something, either directly or indirectly, is directly proportionate to our skill. So someone might pick up a sport like rugby and be absolutely amazing at rugby for the first time they ever played rugby. But indirectly, they had maybe spent years and years practicing because they played American football. So that's an example of how it could indirectly function. But you have to remember with your sales team that the more time that they actually spend in the arena on these calls that the setters get to them, the better that they're going to be at their job. So because of that, you want to give them as many calls, as many opportunities as possible to develop their skill. Because if you have good management on top of this, it's going to be extremely easy for you to go ahead and turn them into people that even they didn't know how to close get results. Our sales team that helped us hit 100K a month, two guys, Daniel, Sebastian. Sebastian was a new closer who just went through a program and was learning after getting on his first proper offer. And the other one, Daniel, was a marketing agency owner that we actually had in our other program that really liked us, so we onboarded him to our team. Both of them still killers, both still work at that company today. And honestly, they've only learned because they got so many opportunities to shoot and actually take sales calls. Delivery team. This can be extremely big or it can be extremely small. The difference of whether your delivery is going to be directly big or small on the org chart is dependent on how much you are going to be involved directly in it. So what I mean by that is if you are running something with an info product, for example, you are going to be honestly probably running a pretty lean delivery team because it's going to be you, and then it's going to be a customer success manager, maybe a few, and then maybe you have group coaching calls where you're getting guests and people from the community onto the call. That would be the extent if you're doing a heavily info product based one. We had a delivery team and we had an offering where we wanted to work with people one-on-one. We decided to try and work with people one-on-one at scale, and we actually managed to pull it off. So our delivery team was absolutely massive. At a certain point, we had 6 people on it. And then I had myself who was running and working with all these guys in order to actually hit that 100K a month. And the way we did it is we would have each of these guys, they would have a capacity of around 20 people that they could work one-on-one with, taking 2 calls with a week while still running their own marketing agencies, making money on the side, but also consulting one-on-one with people. So they got, and every single client that we onboarded got their own personal one-on-one mentor who's actively running a marketing agency as well. The delivery team is going to be up to your choosing. I personally recommend finding somewhere in the middle, because one of the things that we learned is that if instead of these 6 guys being part-time and also running their own marketing agencies, we could wane all this down to literally just 2 people and not have to have an additional 4 people of complexity that we can't develop their skills quickly for if they were full-time. So what I'd recommend, and one of the most important things that you need to remember with your team operations, is that everyone needs to be full-time or they need to be going to full-time. If you have part-time people on your team, you're going to get part-time results. Honestly, you have part-time people on your team, you're going to get part-time results. It's so important that you make sure everyone on your team is gunning towards full-time. Next phase after the org chart is going to be the 3 C's of getting people to enjoy working with you, make money, and honestly just live a pretty good life. So the first one is going to be culture. The second one is going to be cliffs. And then the next one is going to be compensation. So culture. Culture is extremely important. Let me pause the video here and I'm gonna grab something for you. So before our company switched to the new fancy Slack, which you see over here, we had a channel called The Standard, which we still run over there. But essentially it was members of our team every single day posting what they do outside of work to improve themselves. And you can see we push people to do runs, kickboxing, go to the gym every day, and even got to the point where we were able to organize our entire team to do things such as running half marathons and wake up at 4:45 a.m. on days like these where, I mean, if your team's waking up at 4:30 a.m. and they're going to the gym every day, they're going to be absolute killers. So you need a culture that incentivizes people to do their best. And here's the mindset around this. This is something that if you can actually internalize is going to be so beneficial for you. You want to run a company that you are only willing to work with people who want to take their lives to the next level. You should not be running a company where you're working with people who just kind of want to get by in life. If you say that from the get-go, when you're pushing people to do their best and to push beyond their limits and to improve and get better, it doesn't become an issue to improve and hit KPI or to go after this big goal, because fundamentally that's the reason why they're working here. If they're not working here to do their best and actually improve themselves as a person, they shouldn't be working at your company. That is the mentality that you should have around your culture. And that doesn't have to be waking up and going to the gym every day. Crap. Even for me, that is not what it is. Mine could be learning. It could be reading. It could be meditating. It could be going on walks. But you need to be assembling a culture filled with people who want to improve in a like-minded space. Because fundamentally, especially with salespeople, if you're not pushing them to improve and actually hit goals outside of their work life and meshing the two together like this, it ain't going to work well, because they're going to start looking elsewhere to get that motivation, to get that challenge, which isn't going to work for you well. Next thing is cliffs. So I want you to imagine what the face of a cliff would look like here. So this is the face of a cliff. And what you want to do is, for every team member, you want to give them a cliff that they need to go all the way up. And what I mean by this is, it is again, from the software SaaS world, way of saying that they need to get extremely good and get a lot better at a given thing, and then they will get to a certain position. So an example of this for us is, let's say this was a little appointment setter, and this appointment setter wanted to become a closer. This appointment setter would have to climb the cliff of becoming the best setter ever. So best setter ever. And if it's the best setter ever, he can become the closer. And I don't mean like, obviously he might not become the best setter ever. Those guys have been doing it their whole lives. What I mean is, he wants to improve drastically to the point where he is ready to become a closer. And the most important thing is that at the top of this cliff, you also want to have compensation. So you don't just want to give people goals and aspirational things for the sake of becoming a closer, for example. You want to explain to the setter that, hey, you make a 5% commission of deals closed right now doing the appointment setting. If you go to the closing position, you're going to be making 10 to 15% of it. And honestly, that's like a double in pay, with the ability, if your skill is good, to make a way amount more, because you're actually on the calls controlling whether they close or not just setting the appointments. And the setter, when they hear that, if they like working at your company and you have this do your best culture, they're going to be like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. So they're going to work to become the best setter ever in order to get to the top, where the cliff, where the compensation lies for achieving their goals. And the way that you're going to be doing all this is literally by spending time one-on-one with people, right? So one-on-one time is the secret to having this team that performs all these functions for you. I know every single member of Wellness Success Club Catalyst. I know what all the team members want to achieve in their life. I know what they're scared of. I know what they honestly like stay awake at night for, what they really want to achieve. And I've taken that and I've told them exactly what I want to achieve. I talk about it all the time. I really want to get a boat, private pilot's license. There's a whole slew of things that I want to get. And by just spending time one-on-one with these people, you can learn exactly what they want to achieve, and then design everything involving your cliffs, cultures, as we were speaking about earlier, to actually achieve that. So this shouldn't just be their closing goal. It should be their life goal, which just so happens to involve closing. And transparently, in a lot of businesses and companies, the issue is that managers or owners just aren't spending time one-on-one with people. When you onboard someone, you should be spending at least 120 minutes. So like 2 hours just sitting down, talking to them, learning about what they do, even if they're a new onboard as a setter, because that new onboard as a setter can turn into your best closer within a 6-month time span. And then in addition to that, running a consistent management system where every day, on at least one day of the week, you're meeting with every single team member one-on-one once per day. Or not once per day, once per week. And if you're doing that and you're consistently checking in on the goals that you set together, merging the personal life and their work lives together, you're going to actually be able to form an organization where people want to work for you and see success. So that has been Management Operations. Thank you for watching. I know you're going to be an absolutely smashing success in the coaching space because you're able to sit through and watch stuff like this. And I hope the time that I took from you was worth the information that I provided to you. And have a good one.